Good evening and thank you for tuning in to listen to a speech I started preparing for 2 days before presenting it. Yes, that is my official statement where I admit to you, to myself, that I am a professional procrastinator. But that shouldn't come as much of a shock to you. There are a lot of us in the world, lost souls drowning within the sea of productive people. People who know how to get things done, who have life figured out and found the way to success. People who seem to achieve outstanding goals all the time with no signs of rest at all. And I can't help but ask, why is productivity such a big thing now? It's all anyone ever talks about. Just last Christmas, I received a text message from a close friend of mine, let's call her Sophie, and she attached a photo with it. Now I want you to take 3 seconds to try and guess what was in the photo, knowing that her message simply read 3 heart-eyed emojis. Done guessing? Well, I am sorry to disappoint all of you right now, but no. It wasn't a cute picture of her puppy dressed as Santa Claus. And no, it wasn't her cat either. It was in fact a huge to-do list of all the things we both must do during the Christmas holidays. Now, I obviously panicked the second I had a look at the photo. I mean, we were on a break and seeing a to-do list brings back horrible final exams memories. So I immediately asked her, why on earth would she send me such a horrific piece of paper? And as it turns out, my friend finds structure in her day-to-day life thanks to those to-do lists. She uses them for everything, whether it be school tasks, lunch preparation, or even fun activities. Writing things down and knowing exactly when she wants to do each of them helps her stay focused, productive, and on the right track. So in the end, the photo she sent me wasn't all that scary. She simply wanted to build a snowman on December 23rd at 7 o'clock. Yeah, she was that specific. But really, that situation really stuck with me. I just couldn't understand what was so attractive about to-do lists. They personally never motivate me. If anything, that piece of paper stresses me out like no other. But I felt envious of Sophie and wanted to join the productive team for once. So I tried to follow her steps, and it looked like staying organized was working for her, so why wouldn't it work for me? And as determined as I was, I turned to the one person I go to for major life advice, my dear old friend, Google, and I typed in productivity and organization tips and was immediately submerged with hundreds and hundreds of supposedly effective strategies to trick your mind into getting things done. And I kid you not, I kept surfing the internet for hours on end, going from one website to the other, and finally settled on giving one strategy a go, the Pomodoro technique. Now I think some of you may already be familiar with Pomodoro, but it is basically a time management technique where you organize your day and divide it into portions of 25 minutes of any given task, followed by a short 5-minute break. It sounded pretty efficient and easy enough, and my day started off pretty well actually. I woke up, had my morning coffee, and then I started studying for 25 minutes, and then had a break of 5 to 6 minutes, pretty decent I would say. And then I started working on a project for 15 minutes, and then had my bathroom break of half an hour, and then I continued working on my project for 7 minutes, and then had my Netflix and chill break of 2 hours. Yeah, I guess you could see where this was going. I utterly failed. And I thought I was never meant to make sense of my life. In my mind, I classified humans into 2 categories: organized, productive people on one hand, and me on the other. However, I still didn't give up, and only for 2 reasons really. For one, because deep down, I know I wish I could achieve my goals some other way than always at the last minute. But the second reason is what really changed my mindset. It was actually seeing that photo. And if Einstein was this messy, yet not only was a genius but has figured life out to all of us through physics, then maybe I as well don't have to be organized in order to achieve my goals. Einstein did it first, guys. But really, since seeing that photo, I stopped blaming myself too much and became more observant of what other people around me do. You know, people other than Sophie and her to-do list per se. And that step was crucial into building the person that I am today. So allow me to share with you some of the profiles that I saw. So, profile number 1, my sister. Now, I would say my sister is pretty productive in my opinion, yet I never saw her use any to-do list. However, I noticed that she never does any task unless there is some type of competition involved. So, if she has an exam, her strategy to study for it would be to reach a certain point before her friend, for example. It is what motivates her and works for her to stay productive. She's the type of person I would call the microwave runner. You know, those people who run to the bathroom and try to get finished before the microwave beeps for their food. Yeah, it's all about the competition, guys. And then profile number 2, my friend Mona. Now, I would say she's pretty efficient as well, but only when surrounded by people who are also being efficient. She's the type of person I would call socially focused, or, you know, the library fanatic, because that is where she thrives, being surrounded by people who are all focused and being productive. She could even make it work during the pandemic. Despite living alone in her dorm room, she would literally call anyone on FaceTime, tell them to go on about their life, continue doing their tasks, and she would simply display them right in front of her on her screen to motivate herself as well. And then profile number 3, my mother. And I'm sorry if you see this, but I have spent my early years in life watching my mother pull all-nighters or staying up until 4 a.m. in the morning, and I would see her actually being productive, working hard, grinding, working on a paper, and she would pay attention to unnecessary details. And by force of habit, I have started doing the exact same thing. I would put my 100% into a project and pay attention to all the details, but only 3 hours prior to its deadline. And seeing our similarity, I felt it was time to figure out who I was. And to my surprise, I was wrong. I wouldn't call my mother and myself procrastinators, but rather procrastinating perfectionists. That expression sounds like an oxymoron, right? Well, in reality it isn't. Actually, the terms procrastination and perfectionism go together hand in hand. And if you yourself identify as a procrastinator, I can assure you there is always a reason behind it. And perfectionism can be more common than you may think. So let's dive into the mind of one through one quick example. Let's say my friend Sophie and I were given a task of painting a human face in 8 days. Now, here is what my friend Sophie and her organizational skills would do. On the first days, she would start by mapping out the lines, figuring out where everything would go, so that by day 3 and 4, she would add in some facial features and then add in some more details the next days, so that by the end, she has a perfectly fine and complete human face. Now, here is what a procrastinating perfectionist like myself would do. On day 1, I would start by brainstorming, trying to find a good idea to tackle my task. And then I find one, go to sleep, wake up the next day, and get an even better idea and completely reject the first one. And then I think I'm settled, but no, the next day I get even more ideas and reject the prior ones. So I have already spent 3 days just thinking, guys. And then I think I may have found the one. So by day 4, I have found the strategy. In this case, I start by drawing the eye. So I do that. And then the next day, I add in some more details. I am trying to reach what I had envisioned in my mind, and I eventually get there. But as you can see, I have 1 day left, and I have completed 5% of my task. So what do I get? This. That is the face, that is the human face that I present as my final project. So this example is just proof how perfectionism can in fact be the mother of procrastination. What happens in my brain is, if I ever get an idea, I am always aware there exists better ones in the world. So naturally, what do? I keep on delaying and delaying my task, thinking that with time, I will eventually get the perfect idea. However, if I spend 90% of my time thinking, I will never be able to present anything better than this face. Now, allow me to refresh your memories when I told you at the very beginning that I started preparing for this speech 2 days prior presenting it. Well, why do you think that is? I guess you got your answer by now. Yeah, I couldn't find the perfect first sentence. So I kept on delaying and delaying writing the speech, and what do I get? A completely mundane, far from perfect introduction. And so was it all worth it? I guess you could ask my dark circles. And that just reminded me of the times I would go talking to my mother during the day, thinking she had free time, that she was doing nothing, and she would simply shush me away and tell me she was doing her brainstorming session. And I just couldn't comprehend it at the time, but here we are. So what happens to my mother and myself is what psychologists call the 3P cycle: perfectionism, procrastination, and paralysis. It is this vicious cycle where a perfectionist, unable to find the perfect idea, is unable to start the task at hand and stays paralyzed at the stage of thinking and never gets to it. So now in my case, I would also find it crazy that if the project is more important and the more I care about a project, the more I would put off the work I have to do. And this was also explained by professionals as the fear of failure of perfectionists. So if we go back to the example of the face painting, I would delay and delay working on my face, because if I ever get a bad mark or if I ever fail, I would simply blame it on the lack of time instead of the lack of skill, because it is just hard to accept that you're not that perfect. Now, some of you may identify with the individual I just described, and you may be wondering, what could you do to fix all of it? How can you, and I as well, navigate our way through life as procrastinating perfectionists without being dissatisfied all the time? Now, as cliche as this may sound, but the concept of perfection doesn't exist. I know, a shocker. But you and I need to learn to take that first hard step, and everything else will follow, like a snowball effect, if I might say. However, to be more specific, allow me to share with you some of the strategies I personally applied and that may work for you as well. And the first strategy is just a simple philosophy that I have convinced myself with, and it is that I now believe anything in the world, whether it be a makeup look, a project, a report paper you need to give to school, anything, has a maximum peak of beauty or a maximum peak of quality that it can never exceed. So let's say, ladies, you have a party you need to attend and you want to look good for it. So you put on a dress, you put on some heels, and it's time to apply makeup. So you do your normal routine and now you look good. But then you take a glance at the mirror and think, you can perfect it just a little more. You can make it all the more special for the occasion. So what do? You take your eyeliner, add a little wing, and then you take your blush, add in some more color, etc., etc. And what you don't know is, you had already reached your maximum peak of beauty. As harsh as this may sound, but it's true. And the more you play with your face, the uglier you will get with time, because you're maximizing your possibilities of error. So by simply believing in my philosophy, I am just rejecting the existence of the perfect makeup look. So there's now only a maximum peak of beauty, and if I want to get there and reach it, I need time. So I would need to apply my makeup early on in the day and stop procrastinating it. And the second strategy is just the fact that time is the biggest enemy for both procrastinators and perfectionists, and better yet, the combination of both. So I try to use that in my own advantage and tell everyone I know to literally lie to my face and always give me fake deadlines. So if I can't let go of my perfectionism and start my task later on in the day, I would actually have more time, because the real deadline would be later on. And this has quite literally saved me so many times. Another variant of this strategy would be to tell people to, instead of giving you one huge deadline and a huge chunk of stress, to divide it into smaller deadlines and then smaller chunks of stress. And that would make you achieve your task in a better way and in a better mindset. And then the last strategy is just the people you surround yourself with. Again, I'm sorry, Mom, but I've noticed since I've left my parents' house for college, I became simply less inclined to pull all-nighters or stay up until 5 a.m. in the morning just because I didn't have the company I had, which was my mother, who motivated me to stay later and later, and we would simply drag each other down. So in that case, move out. No, I'm just kidding. In that case, just surround yourself with a friend like Sophie, for example, and her organizational techniques, and simply map out your day with her, and that would push you and motivate you to work in a better path. So to conclude, following these 3 strategies, I have become more accepting of my own ideas, happier, and overall more satisfied in life. Because let's be honest here with each other, the H in perfectionism stands for happiness. Thank you for your attention.